The Champs-Élysées in Paris at the crown jewel, the finish line for the most prestigious bicycle race in the world. Arriving here, the champion is something Frenchman Bernard Hinault has done 4 times. The 30-year-old son of a railway worker entered his race confident with an ever-present smile, and early in the Tour became accustomed to wearing yellow as the Tour's overall leader. 24-year-old American Greg LeMond has come here for his second Tour. These are the early pictures of the superstars who ride bicycles. In 3 weeks, the pictures have changed.
Do you want me to punch you in the face?
A wounded Bernard Hinault after a horrible crash. LeMond's tears of anger. The constant overpowering attention for Hinault.
Your turn.
The blinding exhaustion. It's a battle that has already left its marks. This is the story of a man full of fire and with the power in his mind and his legs to ignite the road of France. The man the French call Le Blaireau, the Badger. The 30-year-old Breton who has yanked millions from their homes to build a gauntlet, a pathway to history for their national hero. 4 times the Tour has fallen to Hinault. He rides this year to become only the 3rd man ever to win 5. From across the ocean has come the blonde-haired, blue-eyed American, Greg LeMond, who's moved his family to Europe so he can train with the very best. His raw talent and lust for competition have made him the best American in history. And now this penultimate pair rides together on the same team. The American and the Frenchman, looking to dominate the Tour de France on a team put together by Bernard Hinault. Hinault and his first lieutenant command a group of 10 riders strong, always seem to be riding at the front. They're called La Claire and have rolled over their competition here in the Tour like a freight train balanced on 2 wheels. The Claires lead a whirling swarm of the best of the rest in the world, all of whom cannot win, albeit not even finish this hellish adventure. This, then, is the Tour de France. It's a race over cobblestone roads. And it's a quest over treacherous mountain passes with millions of spectators watching. They come to see a 23-day journey through all of France. And is it really just men racing bicycles? Hello everyone, I'm John Tesh, and welcome to our final day of coverage of the Tour de France bike race. A race which will finish right here along the Champs-Élysées in Paris later on this afternoon. Already hundreds of thousands have gathered to watch the finish. It's hard to believe that the Tour began 23 days ago. Those who managed to finish it today will have covered 2,567 long miles. And through it all, one thing would appear certain. The winner, the man who crosses the line in the yellow jersey, will be from the team La Claire. And with more, here's my colleague Eric Heiden.
Cycling teams in the Tour de France consist of 10 members. Most riders are specifically paid and hired to work for the team star. La Claire has in Bernard Hinault and Greg LeMond 2 of the world's best cyclists. That's a problem. 2 stars, 2 quarterbacks, and only one can cross this finish line in the yellow jersey and win the Tour de France. Now, early in the Tour and through the Alps, it looked as though Bernard Hinault could coast to an easy 5th Tour de France victory. But in the Tour de France, there are no certainties, and anything can happen.
It was last Saturday as the powerful quarterback of the La Claires, Bernard Hinault, rode comfortably toward the town of Saint-Étienne, displaying his yellow leader's jersey across the rolling countryside for all of France to see. American Greg LeMond, 5 minutes 23 seconds back in the standings, was in second place and making a bid to chip away some time. while Hinault was comfortable to stay in the chase group. His leader's jersey was safe for him. Le Mans group finished about a minute and a half ahead. But the drama of the day, of the tour, was yet to unfold. And it involved the yellow jersey. Hinault was in the middle of the pack on the turn. The crash left a deep cut on Hinault's head. He had broken his nose. Since he had crashed within 1 kilometer of the finish line, he would be counted a legal finisher. Hinault knew that, and he didn't have to get back on his bike. It was a statement he was making to himself, to his fans, to the most grueling bike race in the world. His trip to the hospital lasted only 1 night, and when he returned the next day, it was again as the Badger.
Je pense que qu'il me reste mes 2 jambes, mes 2 bras, ce sera encore difficile.
As long as I have 2 arms and 2 legs, it will be very difficult for them.
The Alps behind, the Pyrenees ahead. Bernard Hinault still has 789 miles to Paris. It is the most critical day for Bernard Hinault. Everyone wants to know how badly he's hurt, so he must protect his body and his teammates protect his lead. One teammate makes sure he has plenty of water and takes up the rear on bottle patrol. While in the front, the rest are building a force field to help repel any attacks on the yellow jersey. For Hinault, today is full of questions. How well will he be able to continue in what is a grueling race ahead, and can he keep his lead? For any doubts that he may have, his teammates are there to relieve them, and until he recovers, they will happily carry the load.
So the Laviclaire freight train rolls along with hopes that they'll be able to climb into the Pyrenees with that golden fleece under lock and key. Upcoming, the Pyrenees Mountains, and the ultimate for Bernard Hinault. The Tour de France is on the road all day, every day, with only 1 night's rest between races. And a man who's covered this thing 13 times is my colleague, Phil Liggett.
Well, John, just like you and I go to work, the riders in the Tour de France go to the office too, but their office is the Highway of France, and a routine day for them begins at 9 o'clock in the morning and finishes at 5 at night. The only difference is, of course, that they cannot afford to go back or take a lunch break, because once they're racing through to the finish. The big thing about the Tour de France is, if you don't get to the end of your working day, then you'll never see the yellow jersey in Paris.
Check under that hood, sir.
And life at the back of the race is often as busy as at the front. And if there's sign of the body cracking up, then a freezing cold spray might help a bit. The bicycles too have a pretty rough time, so extra parts are added as this office rolls along. And if you don't agree with the results so far, then call in on the office manager and complain. You may get nowhere, but you've got the problem off your chest. Pascal Simon reports sick, no time off, but some help. Nice suntan, Lotto man, pity it's not all over. Still, this'll help. A change of socks, most do this before going to work. Sunflowers, well, they grow well round here. And now I know why. You've got to keep going, but no reason why you can't put your feet up. It's time for a snack.
Bon appetit.
It is day 19. The Pyrenees provide the challenge for those brave enough to climb into the clouds on bicycles. The Tour's leader, Bernard Hinault, the face of a man who's already survived 1 headfirst crash, and now the concentration of a champion who knows well the Pyrenees Mountains. At 3:38 behind Hinault is Lamond. Greg's mountain training has prepared him well for today's race. And on a rival team, 26-year-old Stephen Roche from Dublin, Ireland, whose climbing skills make him now the only threat to the Laviclaire machine. Who are the climbers and who are the pretenders? The topography here will give you on the answer. With 634 miles to go before they reach Paris, 29 cyclists have already decided they've had enough. This race begins in one of France's largest cities, Toulouse, 131 miles, and it's considered the single most difficult mountain race in the Tour de France. The most telling climb comes near the end of the race. It's the Col de Tourmalet, where the men race to the highest elevation in this year's Tour, 7,000 feet. The trip straight back down readies them for the last climb up to the winter resort of Les Ardennes. It's expected to take 7.5 hours to complete. And with the hiking ahead, no one was in any hurry to burn out in the early going. The first part of the race saw the pack together, snaking its way through the foothills of the Pyrenees. But even though the riding appeared relaxed, the riders were not. Bernard Hinault looking like an angry prize fighter the day after. Greg LeMond has no time for chatter with the team car. Uncharacteristic for the American with that boyish demeanor. Wasn't there a time when Greg LeMond and the rest wore early morning smiles? The only playful man on a bicycle today, Stephen Roche, who was one of the top mountain men, suddenly found a lot of attention. It's as if the mountain knew this was the day to welcome the Tour de France. For as the serpent of cyclists left the valley and the gallery waited, the foul weather danced across the peaks to a devilish symphony. The worst possible conditions for the most arduous climb of the Tour de France. Through the fog and barely visible, a bright piece of yellow. But Hinault and his pack were falling behind. Standing along the roadway, you could feel it. There was something more than an opaque mist hanging in the air. A message read on the face of Bernard Hinault, had he truly recovered from the crash. The hunger in the legs of Greg LeMond, now climbing ahead of Hinault. Here was a race that could change the overall standings in one day. Here was a race that could strip Hinault's yellow jersey right off his back. Hinault's coach, Paul Coakley, knew it. Because up ahead was Stephen Roche, helping to carry the American Greg LeMond up the mountain with him.
Greg LeMond, world's #1 or #2? What's in the mind of the ambitious American as the call of the Pyrenees is heard only by the strongest? It's every man for himself now, and after being second for most of the Tour, LeMond counters the attack by Stephen Roche, who, at the time bomb of this race, is about to explode. Behind, Hinault struggles, and LeMond follows the common enemy. And for the Laviclaire team, there are now two choices. Allow LeMond to go and hope he can beat Roche, or make him slow Roche down. Joined by Climber, the three open up a sizable lead over Hinault. The highest climb gives nothing away, but LeMond and his group have now built an attack with a gap of 1 minute 16 seconds. Hinault, the rider who's covered the course in the best time so far, has seen his early gains eroded by a teammate. LeMond checks with his coach, and on the descent, should he attack or try to slow Roche down and let Hinault cover? Finally, Hinault reaches the summit. He must be a worried man now. On the hardest day of the Tour, the 9 miles climb up to the ski station of Les Ardennes holds the answers. No one has ridden before. The Tour has never been there. It's a secret which will soon be revealed. LeMond thinks he can win the Tour de France, but first he must find the strength on this 5,000 feet climb to break Roche. Fate, is it also on his side for Roche punches, and LeMond doesn't wait for him or Hinault. To save time, the Irishman grabs a new bicycle. Rather long push uphill, which the referees decided not to see. Roche continues to intrude in a personal battle now between two teammates. At last, LeMond is free to prove he is the best, But what about loyalty to his friend and mentor who needs just one more win to make history with 5 Tours de France? Doesn't Le Monde owe him something?
Does American Greg LeMond owe anyone anything? Struggling and injured, Bernard Hinault stands to lose his yellow jersey to his teammate and close friend, Greg LeMond. The Golden Fleece is up for grabs, where Pyrenean mist has fashioned this bizarre battleground.
So Greg LeMond has his chance. What is going through his mind as he rides alongside Roche, who has rejoined after his puncture? LeMond is now under instructions from his team manager to slow Roche down. On a mountain, that's not easy. So LeMond rides alongside Roche, matching his speed, but not exceeding it. Has LeMond decided not to win the Tour? Why can't a rider in a winning position for gold? Maybe his team doesn't have the faith in him that they have in Hinault surviving until Paris. In any case, to win, LeMond must leave Roche behind, and Roche has already shown his strength in the mountains by recovering from that puncture. LeMond's dilemma has turned into a nightmare. He knows he's strong. To the champion's name, Hinault, the Badger continues to fight, followed by his teammate, Nicky Reutemann. What's in the mind of LeMond? Treachery, or is it loyalty? LeMond's director attempts to make the decision, and he talks to LeMond, telling him to ride with Roche, but not to break from him. LeMond doesn't appear to like the idea, but in case he didn't get the message first time, the command is repeated. Led by Reutemann, his teammate Hinault is forced to discover new strengths to prove he really is the rightful holder of the yellow jersey. Up front, the argument goes on in French, and for the first time in this Tour, LeMond rebels against the team's instructions. He angrily attempts to persuade his coach that he should be given the chance to win the Tour. LeMond is now a frustrated young man. He knows he has the strength to attack, but his own team will not allow him to leave his leader behind. At long last, his instinct to win has shown through, and it clashes with his conscience to leave his mentor and close friend. Hinault, injured and confused, keeps a rhythm up the mountain. He knows now he is vulnerable, but he's not sure if his enemy is Roche or LeMond.
And is LeMond's enemy Roche or his coach? LeMond, a bright star on a team with even brighter. He backs off his pace on the climb up the mountain they call Les Ardennes. What a crushing command to obey when you feel in your heart that in your legs is the power to become the first American ever to wear the Golden Fleece. As LeMond slows, the riders between he and Hinault begin to close in, and soon the passive climbing of LeMond attracts more riders. Hinault, leading his chase group, begins to close down the time gap. Does the Frenchman even know his American teammate has been told he must reduce the pace of his race with Roche to save Hinault's yellow jersey? Hinault hired LeMond to ride with him on La Viclaire, and now it's clear who's riding for whom. The thoughts in the mind of the American now surely as cloudy as the mountain air through which he rides. Like a magnet, LeMond and Roche attract even more, and their Pied Piper procession continues. Hinault is now only 1 minute behind. LeMond's group of 2 has become 10 as they near the finish line. And LeMond's group finished 1 minute 13 seconds ahead of Hinault in this race, while the Frenchman in that yellow leader's jersey knew if he maintained his current pace up the mountain, he would surely stay in yellow. And the thousands along the mountain road who had just seen LeMond knew Hinault would be safe. So while LeMond picked up time, he was still 2:25 back, and the strength left for riding was used to produce tears. Hinault's suffering on the climb had taken its toll, and while he was attended to, Greg argued with the man who coaches them both.
All I have to say is if Hinault was in my place, he would not have waited. That's all I have to say. That's the difference. Hinault was in my... I have nothing against Hinault. I want him to win the Tour. I thought if he was in my place at the last climb... Do you want me to punch you in the face? No. Get out of here.
Bernard Hinault back on the victory stand, but now with a severe case of bronchitis. So, in a strange twist of fate, will the coach's orders tomorrow send LeMond after the yellow jersey? Will you let Greg LeMond go if he wants to?
If he can, that's the problem.
Still think you have a chance to win?
It's over now.
Is it? The next day, and the fans who wait outside Hinault's hotel are not so sure the Tour is over. The fans waiting outside Bernard Hinault's hotel room on day 20 are not disappointed. Rumors were everywhere that Hinault, after his harrowing crash and current bout with bronchitis, would pull out of the Tour. Well, you can see for yourself. Greg LeMond readies himself this morning for a day of controversy and tears, which is now the talk of the Tour.
So he's in a bad spot, really. You know, I feel sorry for Greg. Like, so he's by far the better man than Hinault, you know. But he just, because the way the situation is, he just can't play his own game. Like,
You know, it was just yesterday was just one chance in a lifetime. That's why I was probably upset more than anything.
Je pense que c'est la journée critique. Si je passe cette journée, après c'est fini.
If I make it through today, the Tour is over. The if may be there, because the day's climb is the last mountain stage, which is nearly straight up. And now for the La Viclaires, the task is to protect the Maillot Jaune, Bernard Hinault's yellow jersey, and make sure Hinault makes it to Paris unscathed. The only rider close enough in the standings to take it from him is LeMond, and it would appear that decision has already been made. LeMond will be a team player. Stephen Roche has made a move up the front, but at 30 miles, the race just isn't long enough to make up 5 minutes on Hinault. So the five-time champion with LeMond for a pacemaker rides the 7% grade up the Col d'Aubisque. Hundreds of thousands watch the climb, and what they see is a bright yellow jersey carried by a Frenchman. For Hinault and the rest, the sky is gone. There are only flailing arms and deafening screams. For the man who carries a jersey, they thought was gone. And when Hinault finishes, it's time again for the mayhem. Because to the press, the Tour now must certainly be over. It's yellow once again for Hinault, who symbolically tosses his victory to the fans who have helped him in this race against all odds. Two races remaining before the finish line in Paris, and the first will be a time trial. The classic race against the watch and the face of Greg LeMond.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, stop!
This American rides with a passion in a Tour de France he now has no chance of winning. But the time trial is a race alone without what can be the shackles of team tactics. Greg LeMond is out to prove something, but to whom? Hinault begins his race, and the two are chased by the watch and by one another.
Working hard to keep his speed on the rolling course, LeMond gets up out of his saddle. The time trial is not LeMond's event. In fact, the poor showing in the time trials may have cost him the yellow jersey. Racing against the clock, he knows this is the last chance he has to prove to himself and the critics that he can be the best in the world.
Hinault is the recognized master.
First American to win a stage in the Tour de France.
So the teammates who began as friends, had a day as adversaries, now enjoy Greg's historic victory together.
Une belle. Oui, c'est une belle, là. Bravo, Bernard!
The crown jewel in Paris awaits. The Champs-Élysées, the most famous avenue in the world. Folks from all over the world come here just to catch a glimpse. But today, they were here to bring their flags along with their cheers. Because today it was time to watch the most prestigious, the most grueling bicycle race in the world find its finish in Paris. Treat for the hundreds of thousands here to see their superstars, like Frenchman Bernard Hinault.
John, they've come from miles around to see their superstars, and one of the superstars this year, Greg LeMond, who's come on to the Champs-Élysées in second place in his second Tour de France. It's a day for the sprinters on the Champs-Élysées today. They're bringing their leader home now. No more attacks. They know they've lost this battle. They know the best man is known. And they come on to the Champs-Élysées across the sacred cobbles. They covered 6 times this afternoon. 1 lap left to go to the end of the Tour de France, the last 6 kilometers of one of the most interesting races. And the sprinters go towards the last kilometer. Hinault knows now that that yellow jersey is his for keeps. The 5th and final time I think he'll ever win this Tour de France, and he's safe. Now all that remains for the sprinters to take the day's honours, and Rudy Matthijs of Belgium wins his 3rd stage of the Tour. He's nowhere overall. The man who's won this Tour de France, of course, is Bernard Hinault.
2,167 miles and the best overall lapse time for this man. To dress in yellow one more time, Bernard Hinault, 5 Tour wins. The American story, of course, another historic one for Greg LeMond from ROCHE County, Nevada. A kiss from his wife, Kathy. What about next year? The word from Bernard Hinault. As you look at the final standings, with Greg LeMond 142 behind Hinault, the closest finish in a decade. Bernard Hinault completing it in 113 hours, 24 minutes, 23 seconds. Well, that, of course, was some 7 hours ago. We're live now from Paris along the Champs-Élysées, and it's my pleasure to reintroduce to you the man who finished in second place today, Greg LeMond. Greg, first of all, congratulations.
Thank you.
You know, a lot of people in America must be wondering now, after that classic mountain climb in which you had the chance to go on and take the yellow jersey, why you didn't go ahead and do it. Can you put that in perspective for us?
Bike racing's a team sport, and at the time Bernard Hinault had the yellow jersey leading the race, and he had a 3.5-minute lead over me. And the team director didn't feel I was, you know, I would have enough advantage with the second place rider had I taken the lead. And he told me to stop, and Bernard Hinault, after all, is my boss on the team, and I have to take orders from the team.
Were you a little bitter about that?
Yeah, at the finish, because, you know, it's been my dream to win the Tour de France, and it's the biggest event in Europe, and it might only happen once in your lifetime, and I know I had that chance this year, and it's passed, and I have to forget about it right now. But there's always next year.
You're such a great climber. Do you think you have a chance to win next year? Will you win the Tour next year?
You know, I just won the time trial yesterday, and I thought with my climbing and my time trialing improved, you know, those are the qualities it takes to win the Tour de France. And I think that, you know, I'm going to be another year stronger. And I think that this year's experience, I'm going to have the best chance of anybody to win next year.
Bernard Hinault says that you sacrificed for him. Now he's going to sacrifice for you. What do you think about that?
I think it's true. I helped him with Tour de France and the Tour of Italy, and I really believe without me, he would have had a hard time winning the Tour de France. So I think it's normally works for me next year.
Great. Thanks a lot. It was a pleasure following you, although it was a little difficult. Thanks again. For Phil Liggett and Eric Hayden, I'm John Tesh, and for a whole lot of other people who worked very hard on this show. Let's send you back now to Pat O'Brien in New York. Pat?